Let's stay on the jobs report, talk a bit more about how to think about this report and how to think about the state of the recovery almost a year now into the pandemic. For that conversation, we're joined now by Bill Rodgers. He's a labor economist and a professor at Rutgers University. Bill, great to speak with you this morning. I'd love to begin with your thoughts on, and I would wonder how you would agree or disagree with this. I called it kind of a stalling out, a stasis in the labor market recovery, because you look at the gap between where we were February 2020 and today, and it hasn't really changed in the last 4 months. How concerned are you about coming to that hardening as this recovery maybe loses some steam here?
Yeah, I mean, there were signs that we were seeing a bit of a slowdown in the last few months of 2020. My phrase, I think, for today with regards to this report is that the economy moved sideways, or the labor market moved sideways over the last month, which is, I think it's similar to the language you're using. One other indicator I've begun to look at is from the Census Pulse survey. They do a household survey that they've been since the beginning of the pandemic. And one of the things I got really concerned about in some preliminary tabs that I've just done is the growing difficulty of families being able to pay their bills starting at the end of October. And that was also coincides with the growing mortality rate and also the growing infection rate with the pandemic, and hence state and local governments having to put the brakes on the expansion of the economy. If we weren't going into these winter months, I would be a little more optimistic. But since we are, people are being pushed inside. Hopefully Super Bowl parties will be restrained. Otherwise, we can see another sort of spiking of the virus, and potentially again putting more headwinds on the economy going forward.
And to your point, Bill, the data that you're referring to showing that American families with income below $75,000 are the ones having the most trouble meeting their expenses, but also that there continues to be a race gap, also minorities also having more difficulty paying their expenses. And in this report, there's not necessarily a lot of good news on that front. We had the Black unemployment rate not decreasing like it did for other demographics. And you had a lot of jobs where there tends to be a cluster of lower income workers that didn't see increases.
Yeah, it's as one of your earlier guests said, this is the K-style recovery. Or I was interviewing Raphael Bostic and Eric Rosengren, the two presidents, one from the Boston Fed and the other one from the Atlanta Fed, this past week at their unevenness conference. And I used the K-style term, but President Bostic, he's talked about it as the less than recovery, where you have the people on the upper part doing well, they'll be able to work remotely, and you have people on the downward part who are typified or described like what you're suggesting, and young people, minorities, right? They are the ones, and that Pulse survey actually shows that Black families are having, particularly at those lower incomes, have a starker or greater difficulty than the general population of paying their bills, and it's because of their contact, either health issues and or the jobs that they're working in.
Sazzy, you're muted.
I thought it was me.
Hear me now? No, Bill. Sometimes you get those things happen. Is there anything in this report that indicates that we're back to creating significant jobs in this country later this year as more people get vaccinated?
It's really hard to say. I mean, I was actually viewed this report more positively than I think maybe many others, because we had the negative number last month, and with the headwinds we were moving into, I was bracing for another negative number. Maybe it's not so much in this report, but I think the response to this report will hopefully be that those congressional Republicans who are saying that we can't afford to save the economy, that we've done enough, that we just have to kind of let the patient sort of ride this on their own and drink, take vitamin C and drink drink orange juice. That President Biden, the new administration's new efforts to stimulate the economy or really continue with the relief and recovery is really, really important and must be done. And echoing what Treasury Secretary Yellen said, we got to go big. We got to go big.
And, Bill, thinking about more broadly about the experiment that has been undergone here really since March of last year of sending this amount of direct stimulus to households, I'm curious how you're thinking about this as an economist going forward, about whether this is the right response, if this is going to be a common response to downturns. And I mean, I think you look at household balance sheets, it's overwhelmingly effective, but is it the right way to go about fighting each downturn as the default pose, I guess, of the U.S. government? Well,
if going forward, if the kind of downturns that we're going to have in the future are of this magnitude, unfortunately, yes. I mean, over my lifetime, we haven't had any economy with a downturn of like this nature. I mean, I came of age during the 1981-82 recession, and we thought that was really, really bad. But nothing to where states have been shutting down the economy. And there's three types of workers we have to think about. We have to support. We have the unemployed individuals. We have people working part-time but want to work full-time. And then we have those who are in that range above $75,000 to $100,000. They're making a little bit more money than their expenses. And so they have very little cushions. I mean, some of the Federal Reserve statistics about the challenges that families are facing, being able to pay a $400 unexpected bill. And that was problematic before the pandemic hit. And so along with the unemployment rate, the other statistic that we have to really focus on is the employment population ratio. And so in that earlier segment, you're talking about Fed policy getting concerned. Well, if the unemployment rate goes to 3.5%, 4%, I think one of the reasons why they're willing to possibly let it go there is because the employment population ratio, that is the share of the civilian population that's got a job, that is still well below what it was pre-pandemic. And also, even growing into the expansion before the pandemic, participation for many groups, such as minorities, had not even returned to the pre-Great Recession level. So there's the economic security issue is paramount of today for relief, but then we're also going to have to do some reimagination going forward. Otherwise, we're going to see these kinds of, when we have downturns, we're going to see the kinds of carnage that we've seen because we didn't make the investments to help families become resilient. And just one last point here to make this bow in a bow. Many of us, I'm old enough to remember the old Fram oil filter commercial. And there was a mechanic where he said, basically, you got to change your air filter. The client was like, no, I'll wait. And the mechanic said, you can pay me now or you can pay me later. And that's what this is about. We got to stop the deferred maintenance, deferred investments on human capital and social capital.
All right. Bill Rodgers, labor economist and professor at Rutgers University. Bill, really appreciate you taking some time to speak with us this morning. I know we'll be in touch soon.